Today we're diving into a story that proves courage can be found in the most unexpected places. It's a tale of a young waitress named Alara whose simple life took a dramatic turn one fateful evening. Alara worked at the Gilded Spoon, a cozy diner known for its warm atmosphere and delicious pies. It was a place where regulars gathered and stories were shared over steaming cups of coffee. Alara loved her job, the familiar faces, and the comforting rhythm of her days. But one night the bell above the door chimed, and in walked a man who was anything but ordinary. His name was Marco the Shadow Moretti, the city's most feared mafia boss. His presence was like a storm cloud rolling into the sunny diner. A hush fell over the room as he and his two imposing bodyguards took a corner booth. Everyone else seemed to shrink in their seats, avoiding eye contact. The air, usually filled with cheerful chatter, grew thick with tension. The other servers were too intimidated to approach his table, exchanged nervous glances, each hoping someone else would take the order. But Alara, with a deep breath and a steady hand, picked up her notepad. She knew fear was a choice, and tonight she was choosing to do her job. She walked over to Marco's table, her steps confident and her smile genuine. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Gilded Spoon. Can I start you off with some coffee?" she asked, her voice clear and unwavering. Marco looked up, surprised. He was used to people cowering, stammering, or avoiding his gaze entirely. Yet this young waitress met his eyes directly, with a spark of defiance he hadn't seen in a long time. He gave a curt nod. "Coffee. Black." His voice was low and gravelly, a sound that usually made people flinch. Alara simply jotted it down. "Excellent choice. And for you?" she asked, turning to his bodyguards, who seemed just as stunned as their boss. After taking their orders, she returned with 3 mugs of fresh hot coffee. As the evening wore on, Alara continued to serve them with the same professional grace she showed every customer. She refilled their cups, brought them their food, and treated them not as mobsters, but as guests in her diner. Marco watched her every move, intrigued. This woman possessed a rare kind of bravery, an inner strength that was far more impressive than the brute force he was accustomed to. Later that night, as the diner was emptying out, one of Marco's business rivals, a man named Silvio, stormed in with his own crew. Silvio was known for his recklessness and hot temper. He spotted Marco and a smirk spread across his face. This was a public challenge, a blatant show of disrespect. "Oh well, look who it is," Silvio sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "Marco Moretti, hiding out in a greasy spoon. It's getting soft in your old age." Marco's bodyguards tensed, their hands inching toward their jackets. The few remaining customers froze, sensing the imminent danger. Silvio's men started to get aggressive, knocking over a chair and shouting at the terrified staff. The situation was escalating quickly. The diner, Alara's sanctuary, was about to become a battleground. Just as fists were about to fly, Alara stepped forward, placing herself directly between the two rival crews. "That's enough," she declared, her voice ringing with authority. Everyone stopped, shocked into silence. Silvio laughed. "And who are you, little girl? Get out of the way before you get hurt." Alara stood her ground. She looked directly at Marco and said, "This is a place of peace. I will not have this violence in my diner. You will all leave. Now." Then she turned her steely gaze to Marco, the man everyone feared, and delivered the line that would change everything. "And you," she said, her voice dropping to a low, intense whisper, "if you let this happen here, you won't sleep tonight. I guarantee it." The room was silent. You could hear a pin drop. Marco's bodyguards were ready to act, but they waited for their boss's signal. Marco just stared at Alara, his expression unreadable. No one had ever spoken to him like that. No one. Her words weren't a threat of violence, but something much deeper, a challenge to his honor, to his very soul. She was telling him that a man of his power had a responsibility to prevent chaos, not cause it. Slowly, a small, almost imperceptible smile touched Marco's lips. He had been tested with guns, knives, and betrayal his entire life. But this was different. This was a test of his character, delivered by a waitress with more courage than all his enemies combined. He gave a slight nod. Then he stood up, his towering presence filling the space. He looked at Silvio, his eyes cold as ice. "She's right," he said calmly. "This is not the place. We're leaving." He then turned to Alara. My apologies for the disturbance. Your bill, please. Silvio, bewildered but not foolish enough to challenge Marco's decision, grumbled and herded his men out the door. Marco left a large sum of money on the table, enough to cover the bill and any damages, and walked out without another word. The crisis was over. The diner was safe. Alara, trembling slightly now that the adrenaline was fading, began to clean up the mess. The other staff and customers looked at her with a mixture of awe and disbelief. She had faced down the city's most dangerous men with nothing but her words and her convictions. The next day, a black car pulled up outside the diner. One of Marco's men got out and handed Alara an envelope. Inside was a note and a key. The note read, "Courage like yours is rare. The diner across the street is now yours. Run it as you see fit. A place of peace is a good investment." Alara was stunned. The struggling diner across the street had been for sale for months. Marco hadn't just been impressed, had rewarded her bravery in a way she never could have imagined. Her life was changed forever, not by an act of violence, but by an act of courage. This story teaches us a powerful lesson. True strength isn't about intimidation or fear. It's about standing up for what's right, even when you're afraid. It's about having the courage of your convictions. Alara didn't have weapons or muscle, but she had integrity, and in the end, that was the most powerful weapon of all. She proved that one person, with one brave act, can change the world around them. What do you think of Alara's incredible story? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.